In a few.
You know what?
Yes. So how's it going? We are live. Lenessa Terry, how you doing today?
I'm doing
Officially,
great.
yeah, that's good.
I
We
can,
officially we're gonna
I'm
start our
rested.
7 o'clock. Huh?
Okay. I said I'm rested up from Philly Cigar Week, so I can't
You
say the
are,
same because I was only there one day. I
yeah,
had to celebrate Dad, but I'm doing
I
good.
understand. Oh, we had one viewer already. How you doing today? Good to have you on. Not sure who it is. If you want to leave a comment, go ahead and leave a comment. We are on our 2 minute chop it up, just kind of BS session. So we're gonna start the show in a minute. And Lenessa Terry is gonna host today. And Lenessa, we got about 2 minutes before we get it together. 2 minutes before showtime.
Okay, and
Kathy,
Chris,
how you doing?
where you see Kathy? Oh, I see
Kathy,
now.
right there. Yeah, you don't see what I see. Go to your comments
Oh
up
yeah,
there.
because you know
They
what?
see.
Normally I am next to you,
Yeah,
so this is a little bit
that's
different.
exactly right. You on the
You
other
are on
side of
my
the track.
Facebook Live. Welcome to my Facebook Live. I'm also live on my Facebook
All
page.
right.
Thank you so much.
Kathy, good to have you on. Appreciate
13.
you always supporting. Always supporting. Lenessa, we got 1 minute till showtime.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm excited about
Thanks
this
for
one
watching,
too.
guys. Please like and share. Please share this broadcast with your friends. It'll be on YouTube later. If you have questions, you're welcome
Mm-hmm.
to ask. We'll have you ask your questions on our broadcast as well. Just type in the comments. But welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
I got the car
absolutely.
from
Look,
Anthony and Miss Pat. Thanks for
yeah.
joining our Facebook Live.
And if you are interested in anything about what's going on in PG County in terms of this particular race that we're about to announce, please hang in there with us. Please hang in there with us. We are the Smoking Jacket broadcast. We don't just come on here, smoke and joke, and we do relevant issues
Absolutely.
and relevant topics as well as cigars and libations. All right, Lenessa Terry is 8 o'clock. You're the host today. It's showtime. Come on and welcome your guests on today.
All right, so welcome everybody to the Smoking Jacket broadcast with myself, Lenessa Terry, along with Chris, Mr. Petworth, Riley from Petworth Cigars. We're actually not in our regular studio, which is Petworth Cigars today. We're actually off site. So we want to welcome our special guest today. We have Mr. Malik Shakur. He is actually running for judge in Prince
Mm.
George County Circuit Court. We're so happy to have him. And before we
Yeah.
get to Mr. Shakur, you can say hello real quick. We're going to
Hi,
chop it.
Yeah.
how's everybody doing?
So we're
Yeah,
actually live. We're not
yeah,
live in his backyard.
yeah.
And then I
And
also
let's
have
just chop it up a little. Let's warm the audience up a little, Vanessa, because I look.
absolutely.
Ask me how was my weekend in
Well,
my
Chris,
week.
if you let me host like you said I could, I will do that, sir. Okay. I know
You got it.
you train me well. You train me well. So, Chris, how was your weekend? What you do this weekend?
Well, you know what? My weekend was absolutely wonderful. It was tiring. It was long. Not just the weekend, the entire week. Philly Cigar Week.
Yes, that's what we were.
Philly Cigar Week. Closing out on Sunday was Big Daddy Kane himself. Yes, I did
So he
say
did
Big
show up.
Daddy
No,
Kane.
I'm just joking. He was
He
there.
showed up. He showed up. He did his thing. He was good. It was good. I loved
Okay.
it. Loved the music. I, of course, sat down the whole time and listened to him. But Philly Cigar Week
I'm
overall
glad you
was,
sat down, Chris, because you stood up a lot over the weekend.
yes,
When
yes,
I
I
was there
did.
on Saturday, I know you had some little, you got a little tired. Old
Yeah,
man can only stay on his feet for so long.
I
So in
know.
cigars, come on, you got to get some rest.
You are right. I took the right man for the job. Shout out to my man, the guy in the Fennel, who
Yes,
I mean
yes.
held it down. When I tell you he held it down, he literally held it down. One of the things uh, uh, I, I try to bring everything to accommodate everybody in the smoke world. So I bought the kitchen sink and some, and so it was great. It was a good opportunity, great exposure. The week was long. It was fun, exciting being in my hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So it
Yes,
was a
that's
great time. Great time. Loved it. Needless to say, all that after party stuff, I couldn't do it. Wasn't going to do it anyway if
yeah,
I
me
could have
either.
done it. But the rest, afterwards, the eating, the going back to the room, chilling, smoking on the patio was good enough for me, and definitely a great time.
It was definitely it was powered by Lit Torch app. Susie Mooney, we
Mm-hmm.
had
Mm-hmm.
last show.
Yeah,
She's doing a
gotta
wonderful
give it.
job out there. But I was set up as well. Puffin Pretty was in the building on Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
so we drove up Saturday morning. I had to get back Sunday for Father's Day. So I
Mm-hmm.
drove up and we had a fabulous time. I met so many wonderful people. Of course, sold some
Yeah,
merchandise, got some new clients. So it was great. We were at Kavanaugh's River Deck, right down by the pier. Yeah, we had Antoine. Hey,
absolutely.
Antoine. Thank you for
Hey,
joining us
but you know what,
today.
Lenessa, though, I gotta give a shout out to Antoine because
Absolutely.
Antoine was at Philly Cigar Week. He set up, and he's about to introduce some new things in the cigar world. Excited for him.
Yes,
So,
he and Juju.
Antoine, kudos to you, my brother. Kudos to you,
Yeah,
Antoine. Yes, it was a great weekend. Thank you for being on. You and Juju gonna do some great things. We looking forward to it. We're gonna get y'all on the show too, because they are now and have been becoming brand ambassadors in this cigar world. So we thank them for their contribution to this.
absolutely. So, Chris,
Amen.
what are you smoking today, Chris?
I am smoking my one of my favorites, and I very rarely will say favorites because I don't have a whole lot. But this right here, I don't give them away. I don't even sell them in the shop. I don't want to make no money off them because I want to keep them for myself. This is the
Okay,
Arturo Fuente work of art Maduro,
nice.
and it is a compact beast, full of flavor, good
I
and
can
strong,
imagine.
and it's gonna go great with this Hennessy privilege I have.
Okay, you smoking well,
Thank you
drinking good,
for
smoke good,
asking.
drink good. Salute. And what are you
So
drinking? Marie? And smoking.
I am smoking an LFD double Ligero.
Ligero, ligero.
Ligero.
Yeah, let it roll off
Ligero.
the
mm,
tongue.
Yeah. A double Hilero
Ligero,
or doble Ligero.
ligero. Yeah.
And I am drinking a hazy little thing IPA by Sierra Nevada.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm not an IPA girl, but I did go ahead and accept one. Malik gave me an IPA today to chase
Yeah.
my monkey shoulder.
mm,
What you drink?
mm-mm.
You usually
I
drink?
normally drink Stella. So I'm kind
Okay.
of on the lighter side, but I don't
Okay.
like Corona or Heineken.
Okay.
Corona's too watery, but I
So,
do Stella. I do Red Stripe, really cool Red Stripe.
okay. So I'll be
Yeah.
sure to
But
get some.
you drinking an IPA and some monkey shoulder,
Well, the
and you
IPA is
putting it,
on the side
well,
for sipping,
at least you
but
got a good lawyer next to you.
right, and I
If you
have a
get it,
double ahead as well. I don't normally smoke this size cigar, but Malik offered it to me, so I took it.
Yeah.
okay, all right, sounds
So
good. Mm.
So again, we have a special guest here. By all means, if anybody has questions, please post them in the comments. We thank you for watching us today. Please like and share. As Chris said at the top of the show, we're not just about cigars, we're also about education. So we have different folks on the scene on our show. We have cigar ambassadors, we have cigar vendors, we also have politicians, and we have attorneys. So Malik, tell us about yourself and what's going on with you.
Yes, thank you. My name is clearly Malik Shakur. I've been an attorney for 25 years. I graduated from the George Washington University Law School in 1997. Excuse me, sat for the bar later that year, passed on my first time. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord.
Yes.
Mm.
I worked as a public defender for 3 years in the late 80s, early 90s. From there, I worked for a private attorney in Montgomery County and Prince George's County, and he focused on criminal, traffic, personal injury, workers' compensation, and family law. Worked for him for 3 years, and then in 2004, I opened up my own practice, where it's currently located in Largo, Maryland, right off of the Beltway. And I've had my own practice since 2004, doing my thing.
And that's how we met.
Right.
So I was actually a client. We won't say for what.
Nothing bad.
It's all good. He took care of things.
Vanessa, you felt that straight line walk?
Yeah, every now and then, all of us do. It is no, that's not what happened.
No.
We like to keep people together.
Yeah.
But that's how we met. And Malik is actually running for judge in PG County. I'm a PG County resident. I was so happy to see that. I was like, I would love to support. Whatever you need me to do, you got it.
Yeah, and I'm so appreciative of the support of people like you who started out as clients and then became friends and have now become family. So I've had so many former clients who have seen my posters around the county and who have reached out to me to say, hey, I know that you're running for judge. What can I do to support you?
Right.
I haven't had one young brother I've represented on several cases, and nothing too serious, but he called me out of the blue and he was like really excited, and he's like, man, I saw your poster, you're running for judge, that's so great. And he says to me, he says, I've never voted in my life, please tell me how to register to vote, because I'm going in and I'm going to vote for you.
That's what it's about.
I think that is indicative of the level of compassion that I bring to my job. When people come to me, it's not because it's the best day in their life. They're experiencing some turmoil, and it means a lot to me that people put their faith in me in those trying situations to guide them through it. So as I like to say, I don't have a line of white folks beating a path to my door to represent little Timmy and little Johnny, but the majority of my clients are people of color, particularly African Americans. And if you come to me to represent you, that means a lot. That means that for whatever reason you feel a connection with me, whether it's because I've got locks, whether because my name is Malik Shakur, whether or not it's because of something I said or told you or whatever, but you put a level of trust in me to guide you through the process. And that's not something that I take lightly. So,
and I saw that passion, when I worked with you, I definitely saw that passion. You do love to help anybody, even if it means discounts. And I mean, I'm not trying to put you out there saying you give discounts, but my point is you help people.
Right.
You're not just out here to make money.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're looking to run for judge, I said, oh, this is going to make a huge impact in the community.
Yeah.
So how's the campaign going so far?
The campaign's going really well. We, when the campaign started, we had a lot of hiccups and, fits and spurts, but the campaign is now starting to gain traction. We're gaining more and more volunteers, and we're putting up signs and handing out literature, knocking doors, and going out and meeting the voting public. So I can feel the momentum building in the campaign. Right. So it's really an awesome and powerful thing. So we're building momentum, and we're ready for early voting, which starts in Prince George's County July 7th through the 14th. Okay. And the primary is on July 19th. So I need to come in first on either one of the ballots, the Republican or Democratic ballot, as the race is a nonpartisan election. I can't run specifically as a Democrat or as a Republican, but I need to come in first on either one of those ballots, and then I'll be able to move forward to the general election in November. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
And people don't realize how important it is to vote in the primary. They think, oh, we'll just go out when it's election season, the main election day. Early voting is important because something can happen on election day. Early voting, you can do mail-in. So when you get those little pamphlets in the mail, don't throw them to the side. Make sure you pay attention to the dates. Register. But it is important to vote in the primary for reasons like the folks who need that vote in order to move to the main ballot. So that's interesting. A lot of people. Chris, what you got for Malik, Chris?
Well, and Antoine Chambers is kind of helping me out here because it's a few things that he had posted. One was, first of all, we need more black judges, period. He's a retired Baltimore City Police. The second one, I'm going to address this in a minute. But what was the fuel in the that drove your passion to even get into this race?
Well, let me back up for a minute. I thought you were going to ask me a different question. I thought you were going to ask me what was the fuel that drove the passion to become an attorney. And if I can answer that question first and then go
absolutely.
At hand. When I was a young man, right, when I was a teenager, you know, I was raised by a single mother. You know, my sister and I and my mother, we grew up very poor. There were plenty of days where, you know, I would go to bed without anything to eat. There were times when I would come home from school and the lights wouldn't be on in the house. There were times in the miserable New Jersey winters where we didn't have heat in the house, right? You know, oil heat or whatever. And I would have to, my sister and I would have to drag our mattresses into the kitchen and sleep under the open stove, you know, the turn the stove on with the door open in order to get heat. But as a teenager, you know, I used to get in a lot of trouble, you know, find a lot of, you know, it was a little bit more of the mischief, but nonetheless, I would find myself in juvenile court and I would be sitting there and my stomach would be in knots, right? And I would look around and I say, man, I want to be anybody but the defendant. You know, I wanted to be the judge. I wanted to be the prosecutor, the defense attorney, the bailiff, you know, anybody but the defendant. So when I was 17, I dropped out of high school and, you know, became a full-time street runner. But when I turned 23, I had a daughter who was at that time 3 years old. And I had a premonition that it was 10 years in the future and that, you know, I was strung out and I was sitting on the ground with no shoes on, dirty feet, dirty pants, dirty, you know, shirt, everything, leaning with my back up against the bar, the wall of the bar, the front of the bar. And I'm begging people for money. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see my daughter walking down the street with a group of her girlfriends. You know, they were coming from school. And we caught eyes and my daughter crossed the street so that she wouldn't have to acknowledge me in front of her friends. So she, you know, I don't want to call it a dream because it was more than that. It was a premonition that if I kept on my current path, you know, that's where I would end up. But, you know, for a year, you know, after that, you know, I started reading about Black folks in the civil rights struggle, you know, Malcolm X, Eldridge Cleaver, Soledad brothers, you know, different historical figures. And it inspired me to want to pursue my goal to go to law school. So, you know, I got my GED, then I went to a junior college. I was able to graduate in 2 years. From there, I transferred to Howard University in 1991, graduated from Howard University, magna cum laude in 1993, and then went to GW Law School and graduated there in 3 years. Passed the first time, and the rest is history. But through reading about the struggles of our people in this country, you know, it inspired me to want to help and to make a difference. So I decided to go into criminal defense. And, you know, of course, like I said before, I became a public defender. And to your question, Mr. Petworth, as a public defender, there were many times when I would have clients who were factually innocent. And when I say factually innocent, I mean that the facts of the case didn't support a conviction or a guilty verdict or guilty finding in the case. The client wasn't there. You know, the witness couldn't have seen what they say that they saw, whatever. The facts weren't there to get a conviction. Then I would also have clients who were legally not guilty, meaning that they had a specific legal argument, a legal defense for what they did. And time again, I would come across judges who would disregard that, right? And would find my clients guilty and sentence them to probation or sentence them to jail. And I thought that it was so unfair. And it ignited my passion even further, you know, to stand up for folks who, you know, have been accused. And, you know, my clients, you know, they would come to me, you know, on occasion and they'll tell me, you know, Mr. Shakur, I'm not going to even lie to you. I did it. I'm guilty. And I would tell them, look, you're not guilty until the judge says you did it.
That's the way the system works.
Yeah, just because you did it doesn't mean that you're guilty, right? Because OJ, in my opinion, did it, right? But OJ was not guilty, right? So they have to find you guilty. They have to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So, you know, yeah, I hold that true. And, you know, the other thing too that, you know, really shocked me, you know, as a young attorney was the fact that the private bar, right? Private attorneys, public defenders knew who the bad cops were, right? We would all talk about them. Everybody knew. The prosecutors knew who the bad cops were. The judges knew who the bad cops were. But yet and still, the prosecutors would still prosecute these cases of these cops who are known for lying and planting evidence and so forth and so on. And the judges would routinely find people guilty based on this, you know, shaky testimony from these dishonest police officers. So, you know, it's ignited my passion to step in and to be a barrier between the community and these bad cops, right? So the judge that I'm running against was a former prosecutor, and she has a very friendly and cozy relationship with the police. She hangs out at the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge in, you know, 202 in Upper Marlboro. You know, she even worked as a bartender there.
And this is the incumbent that you're talking about.
Right, the incumbent. And when she was sworn in as a judge, she had a party at the FOP, but she has a very cozy relationship with the police. And to that point, if you all can remember, 6 years ago, there was a detective, Ja'Kai Colson, and he was killed by another Prince George's County police officer at Palmer Park Police Station. There was a shootout there. And this cop shot Ja'Kai Colson. Well, in any event, 3 weeks ago, his parents did a news conference connected with the settlement that they had in the case with the county, you know, for the wrongful death of their son, and who happens to be Mr. Petworth from Philadelphia. But his father spoke very passionately, and what he said was that he and his family pushed Angela Also Brooks, who was the county attorney or state's attorney at that time, to prosecute this officer, to indict this officer for killing their son. So she hands the case over to the woman that I'm running against, who was a prosecutor in the office at that time. And Officer Colson's father, James Colson, specifically says two things. Number one, she should have never been on the case because she has a very cozy relationship with the police. And he talked about seeing her at the FOP lodge on numerous occasions. And that number two, he and his family firmly believe that she intentionally botched the grand jury so that they wouldn't bring back an indictment based on her relationship with the police. And, you know, if, you know, for the folks who don't know what a grand jury is or what the grand jury process is, you have a group of, you know, 25 jurors who sit and hear these different cases. And you can think of a grand jury as a mini trial, and a mini trial in the sense that the prosecutor puts forth their witnesses and their evidence, and that's all the grand jury hears. So if you only hear one side of a story, you're more apt to believe that story, especially in the absence of any, you know, countervailing evidence or testimony, right? The defendant or the suspect doesn't even have a right to be in the grand jury, let alone to put forth witnesses. So the saying in law school was that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich, right? So it's very easy for a prosecutor to get an indictment where they want an indictment. But if they want to put their finger on the scale one way or the other, they can do it. And what it says to me, you know, and again, this news conference was about 3 weeks ago, but I knew who this woman was. I wasn't familiar with that particular story, but it fit in line with what I knew her to be. And that's what motivated me more than anything to become a judge, because I knew that this woman shouldn't sit in judgment of our people in Prince George's County. And, you know, I say that if she could do that to Detective Colson, who, trust and believe, was one of the best of us, right? He was a good guy, number one. A lot of the other detectives and police officers looked up to him. But if she could do that to Jakai Colson, what would she do to you, right? Or your son, right? Or one of your children, or to me, or one of my kids. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm fighting against. So
she's not the only person that you're running against.
No, there are
the main ticket. But,
right. There are 3 other opponents. So there are 5 of us in the race altogether. You know,
and they're also African American.
Right, they're also African American. The woman, the sitting judge that I'm running against, isn't African American, but you know, there are 4 African Americans running against this white woman who, coincidentally, was appointed by Larry Hogan, our Republican governor, and Larry Hogan has been governor of Maryland for 8 years. In Prince George's County, they have about 28 judges, sitting judges on the bench. And out of those 28 judges, only 5 are African-American men. In a court system where 72% of the people that come before the court on any type of case whatsoever are African-American men, you only have 5 African-American judges on the bench. And in his 8 years, the governor has only appointed 2 African-American men to the bench in Prince George's County, which is, you know, it's atrocious, you know, to say the least. So, you know, and particularly to give that position to, you know, this woman, you know, it's a personal affront to us as Prince Georgians.
Yeah. And if you get the seat, how long would you serve?
Well,
I mean, how does that?
Okay.
What's the term?
Yeah, it's a 15-year term, right? Or if you turn 70 before the 15 years, then you know they put you out the door. So when I take office, when I take the bench, I'll be 58 years old, and I'll have 12 years before they put me out to pasture. But you know they'll let me come back as a visiting judge, or you know whatever the case may be. So it's typically a 15-year term. And if I could back up and explain something, in Maryland, when you're appointed as a judge for the circuit court, you have to defend your position through the electoral process in the next upcoming election. So it gives us an opportunity to challenge some of these judges that the governor has put on the bench. And in Prince George's County, in the last 3 election cycles, you've had 3 African-American women challenge the sitting judges, and all 3 of them were able to knock 3 sitting judges off of the bench. Awesome. So, you know, that's why, you know, that's the reason why I'm able to run for, you know, run against this woman. So, so you have to run in your first year, then you have to run again in your 15th year. And if you, you know, if you win it at the 15, then I guess you get another 15 years if you don't turn 70 before then.
Lenessa, and thank you for your comments and candid answers. I appreciate that because you answered a whole lot of things that I was going to ask questions about. But one of the questions I'm gonna save it for later. But I invited Antoine Chambers on. We all just left Philly, and we were in Philly together for Philly Cigar Week. Known Antoine for a long time, and this brother here, he got some nice locks on him. And you know, he is a retired Baltimore, county police officer.
Baltimore City.
Me on the show, bring me on, right? I said no problem because I was supposed to have Lit Torch Susie on, who, of course, was the title sponsor, and also the Philly Cigar Week was powered by the Lit Torch app. But I know she's tired. She is on watching us. I tried to call her, but Antoine, Lenessa, if you don't mind, can Antoine jump in there?
Absolutely. Welcome, Antoine, to the show.
Well, welcome. The first thing I like to say is congratulations to the Your Honor. I'm speaking it to in existence, Judge Shakur. Thank you for Lenessa and Chris for having me here. I can just tell you this. that I went through the same struggle as a Baltimore City police officer back in the mid 90s to early 2000s. I was one of the first police officers in the DMV area following an officer in New York. Followed his stream with locks. And I can tell you this, as a police officer and an African American, I know what Mr. Shakur is talking about. The system is broken. I've seen it time and time again over my 20 years of being a police officer and in law enforcement, of the overcrowded dockets, the shortages of judges and also attorneys, and people getting cattled through this system and herded through this system just because this docket is overcrowded, and the demographics of where the crimes are occurred and the different crimes, and it's just crazy. And he said it right too. We had some crooked police. Of course, if you've seen the big story on the police, that the gun trace task force. I knew some of those fellas. They were young fellas when they were coming up, when I was already on my way out of retirement. And they do things that are injustice. They do things that will violate people's civil rights. And I'm not just saying all officers are bad and all judges are bad, all attorneys are bad, but the public defenders, and I'm speaking to the Baltimore City and Maryland system, the judges and the public defenders did not adequately try the cases. The state's attorneys were biased in like the one he was talking about, in their the way they tried the case. So I can really relate to what Mr. Shakur is talking about. I've seen it. I've been out in the trenches. I've been in squads or groups of police where they were doing dirty stuff, and I wasn't a part of it. You know, I was in the community, and I had my ear to the community, and I was there to serve the community. And I didn't stand for all of that craziness of searching people illegally and, you know, planting drugs on them and doing all that stuff. The system is broken. And I'm glad that Mr. Shakur is running for this office, because we need people like him in office. And Lenessa said it right. You have to get out to these primaries and you have to vote.
Thank you, Antoine.
I appreciate. I'm sorry, Lenessa. Okay. I appreciate your comments, and I even more than that, I appreciate your service to the community, because I know that you know, there are a lot of good cops. You know, there are a lot of brothers like you and Jakai Colson who want to make the community better, who want to you know, protect the community. But you know, there is a certain element within, I think, any police department, and it starts from the top and it works its way all to the rank and file, who want to abuse people's rights, and they want to pump up the arrest records to, you know, justify their bloated budgets and so forth. And oftentimes they do this at the expense of people of color and poor people. You know what I'm saying? Right. And you kind of referenced the you know, Baltimore Gun Task Force and that whole fiasco. I have a cousin who is retired from the NYPD, and I was talking to him earlier this week, and he was telling me about the TV show We Run This City that's playing on HBO, and it's about that gun task force. And I watched. You know, he pumped it up, and you know, the guys that made the show are the same guys that made The Wire, and a lot of the actors from The Wire are in it. And he was telling me how it is, and I literally, I swear on my mother, I couldn't watch 5 minutes of it because it was so real. The things that they were saying, the things that they were doing, it was almost like I had PTSD. I had to turn the TV off. So these things happen, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, more often than not, our people are on the wrong end or the bad end. They're the ones being abused. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's just another you're just another statistic. And even myself, when I stood up for people in the community loved me. I had community activists behind me. I had civil rights activists behind me. Even when I went through my struggles and wearing my locks, I was suspended for 2 years. And then one day, and I didn't go to the FOP. I didn't use my FOP lawyer. I went to the ACLU. I had a pro bono lawyer, a sister that fought tooth and nail, and another Marine who was a white counterpart. And I filed my own. And see, that's the thing, Mr. Secure. We gotta know these laws and our rights. I filed my own federal. I went past the Maryland state. I went to the federal. I filed an EEOC complaint, and in 2 years I was suspended. They was messing with me. They had turned on me. They called me all kinds of names and why I should tuck my tail between my legs. And then one day I was back out in the workforce because they had no answers of how they were unjust. They were, trying to terminate me in lieu of my religious belief and the way I wear my hair, and it's just crazy. And one day I was back on the street. A African-American agent from the Department of Justice came down and asked them, why do you have this man suspended in lieu of termination? I had petitions. I went on the Kwame and Fume show, almost made Oprah. I was in Jet Magazine, Newsweek. If you Google my name, you'll see all of these things pop up. And it's just one day they were begging me to come back to work because he said he was going to come with indictments from the top to the bottom. And that was the problem. That's the problem. Yeah. They do this thing because they can. And we need to know our rights. We need to know the laws, and we need to vote people like you in office that wouldn't just clear the docket and go on a golf course by lunchtime.
There's a stigma. I know we're talking a lot about locks here. There's a stigma that comes with that because most of the people on the street these days, they're wearing locks. And then when you walk into a courtroom, there seems like there's an automatic prejudgment upon individuals because, you classify it as, oh, he's a thug. He got the long hair to that, and prayerfully, I know you won't judge anyone like that because some of them coming in, they looking like you. But my question is this, because I've always wondered, being in the system myself at one point in time, how much time do you think, well, as a lawyer, and I believe you know this, how much time is a judge, how much time does a judge take prior to the courtroom, getting in the courtroom, reviewing the cases that come before him? Is there any time that you think that they take reviewing the docket, looking over the files, etc., instead of the prosecutor just getting up there and say, Judge, I had before you so-and-so, etc., and here's what he's charged with, and blah, 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 so forth and so on. Does the judge take the time to get the P's and Q's of what's going on with that particular case before he gets in the courtroom, et cetera? Does he do his own little reading, investigation, et cetera?
Well, let me say this. I would hope that the judge spends zero time prior to the trial reviewing the case and researching the case and so forth and so on. I've had a countless number of trials where the judge would have the court file open and he's reading the statement of probable cause, which, Antoine can tell you is, essentially the police report, which in and of itself is not evidence, right? Because there are things that the officer may or may not have written in the report that aren't evidence, right? That aren't admissible at trial. So if the judge reads that, now that's planted in his head, you know what I'm saying? And he's already prejudged the case. So the judge needs to sit there and hear the evidence as it's introduced, right? Either through the witnesses or physical evidence or other types of evidence. They need to sit there and in real time evaluate that evidence rather than read the statement of probable cause and prejudge the case or run the risk of being biased towards I was going to say one side or the other, but typically when they're biased, it ain't on our side, right? It's on the side of the right. So I would hope that a judge spends zero time.
That's interesting. I like that answer. I can accept that because I guess I'm glad I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. But I mean, I think that's very relevant in terms of what you said. I think a lot of people need to hear this, and I think it's also for the people that is on here, share this broadcast, mark this particular time that and what was said. We're at the 40-minute mark, but please look at the whole broadcast. Because that's interesting. I could see that now. Whereas if he took the time to look at things, he already comes with a prejudgment. You got to hear the facts as stated and whatnot. And so I appreciate that answer.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to what David said. David said, well said, Antoine Chambers. So thank you so much, Antoine, for sharing your story.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, that's okay. It is important to hear the stories and how they relate to what we're dealing with today. Because like you said, the system is broken. Antoine said the system is broken.
Well, it's not broken. This is the way that it was designed to operate.
It was designed. It was designed this way from the beginning.
It was designed to. So.
Right.
Exactly.
Soon,
exactly. People are being corralled and prosecuted by demographics. It's just like the red line housing. It's the same thing. You go in the white neighborhoods or you go in the well-to-do neighborhoods, and they're doing some serious stuff, some serious crimes. Absolutely. And they can afford a high-powered attorney to get them off. And maybe, little Johnny's have connections, his parents or whoever has connections to the judge or the county that they're being prosecuted, and they get off. Now I'm not saying that we're not in the wrong, because my pet peeve was if you were messing with the elders in the community, the children in the community, and causing havoc, then you had a problem with me, and I would gain as much as intelligence on you and where you dwell and what you do, and I would put pen to the paper. My conviction rate was a 90% conviction rate. I didn't have a problem with the state's attorney. I spelled it all out in my probable causes and in my incident reports and whatever I had to do. But you know what? I had a relationship with those guys too. They didn't mess with me. I would put together so much intelligence. I would call it my Bible, and I would open this book up, and I say, look, I would tell you what judge you were on probation with, lay down your crimes, when you were off of probation, where your auntie lived, your grandmother, or wherever you dwell, and I would come after you. And I didn't have to beat you up or plant drugs or whatever. I was an investigator,
Good policing.
Yeah, I was taught by the real old school guys, So, and that's another problem too. A lot of police are coming through. There's not older guys. Like, I didn't see a car until a year afterwards. I was walking foot in the community. So, and you had to have your ear to the street. You couldn't be on your phone. You had to have your windows rolled down. You had to know everyone in your community or on your beat, and that's not, nowadays it's not that. You're getting a lot of people, a lot of officers is coming in from other areas, other states, and just getting a job and push and just trying to make overtime and trying to make ends meet, and so they're gonna corral up all of the people that they see on the street and give them trumped up charges. I'm not saying this is every case.
How many officers did you work with that were from Pennsylvania and West Virginia that lived there? Not that they were born there, that they lived there and they commuted to come to Baltimore.
A lot. And that's another issue too. When I joined, you had to live in Baltimore City. You had to. That was a requisite. now, you have people commuting from Pennsylvania, West Virginia.
I did. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So they don't know the community.
Don't want to take any
culture.
time for you, Antoine, but I got to get this question out. As a public defender and public defenders today, do they take adequate time and concern and care about the cases that they try?
Well, let me say this. I would never disparage public defenders as a whole. If I were out of town, right? Let's say if I was in Arizona and I got arrested, rather than opening well, I guess they don't have phone books anymore, but Googling defense attorneys and choosing one at random, who I didn't know anything about, I think I'd rather take a public defender over a private attorney in that situation. Because when you think about it, right, public defenders practice one type of law. Public defenders practice one type of law in front of the same judges and the same prosecutors. So they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, their likes, their dislikes, their biases, this, that, and the other. So a private attorney, I may be tomorrow in Rockville, and then, in the morning and in the afternoon, I may be in Howard County. I may be doing a civil case or, something, a criminal case. But as a public defender, you only do criminal cases in one courthouse in front of the same people. So there's a strength in that. The other thing, too, the other misnomer about public defenders is that they're the bottom of the barrel, right?
Right.
When you come out of law school, if you want to be a trial attorney, if you want to be a litigator,
you gotta make a name for yourself.
Is to be a prosecutor or a public defender. So people are clamoring for those public defender jobs, right? So the public defender, they get to choose from the best of the best. All right. They're not bottom of the barrel. But the thing about that concerns me is that in Maryland, there is no pay equity between public defenders and state's attorneys. The state's attorneys typically earn, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 more than the public defenders. And the people who can afford to be public defenders are the people who didn't have to take out student loans, right? They're the people who come from money, right? And they're so unlike or so different from the people that they represent that my concern is that they can't relate directly to them. So someone like me with, graduated with $120,000 worth of student loan debt, I couldn't be a public defender for a whole lot of time at $32,000 a year. When I was a public defender, I loved the work, right? Because all I had to worry about was focusing on my craft, right? Becoming a better attorney. And I worked in a large law firm, right? The public defender's office, where there were senior attorneys who I could go to and say, hey, what do you think about this case? What argument can I make here? This, that, and that other. How does this argument sound? You know what I'm saying? So those are, and to answer your question, particularly in Baltimore City, where it's just a revolving door. And to her credit, Sister Marilyn Mosby, who is the state's attorney for Baltimore City, she several years ago, right, said that she's not prosecuting low-level crimes. So the nuisance crimes, the disorderly conduct, trespassing, simple possession, loitering, things right that came, with after emancipation, right? You're standing on the street corner, so now they're gonna lock you up for 5 years and then rent you out as slave labor. She's like, I'm not prosecuting those crimes. And when she stands up against the system, now they put charges on her, right? They looking to put that system, you know what I'm saying? But she was like, lock them all up. She could have murdered somebody and they would have nothing to say about it. But I'm sorry, I got a little long-winded there, Mr. Petworth. But
no, that's all right. Look, let me tell you, I think the more you speak, the more people get to know you, the more informative this is. I mean, Microcloud said informative podcast. I mean, because people can only vote based on what they hear, how they hear it, and then how they process it. And so it's great to get to know the candidate in this light because it speaks to your character, your knowledge, for one, and what you stand for and what you won't stand for. I mean, because when you look at it at the end of the day, people have a stigma about certain things. I mean, I'm not getting no public defender because they're not going to try my case. They're in the system, they're for the system, etc. I've always said, I'm like you. I'd rather take a public defender over, because at the end of the day, I'm thinking this man need to make a name for himself and get out from what seems to be or might be the bottom of the barrel. The more cases and the more percentage that his win rate is, and what they might do, it helps him and them. I mean, I know what we see on TV about the judge and public defender relationship, etc. But that's not always the case in real life. So you're bringing real life and informative information to this podcast, which I thank you for that, because it may help somebody in the future.
Indeed. And a public defender, like you said, Chris, they will fight tooth and nail, and they will versus some high-powered private attorney just collecting the money and just, going through the basics. The public defender does have to make a name for themselves. They have to actually learn the case laws. And just like a police officer, every case is different. Every incident that we went through, it could go from a 0 to 100, but you have to, act accordingly and charge accordingly. And the public defender does the same thing. They fight the cases accordingly. Like, we have to get away from all of these across the board. And this is why we're being prosecuted to the fullest in numbers, because it's across the board. They're prosecuting things across the board. And it's just crazy.
And I don't want to cut you off or anything, Antoine, but we don't have a lot more time left in the show. So I would be remiss if I didn't remind everyone that Malik is actually in campaigning mode. So what that means is that he's out here trying to solicit votes, trying to hang up signs, be seen, be heard. So which is one of the reasons why he's on this broadcast today. But it takes money to run a campaign. So I just want to let everybody know that this Saturday, right here at Malik's private residence, and you'll get the address only if you RSVP, we're actually having a fundraiser. So it's also powered by Lit Torch. So Lit Torch is donating some items. We actually have Jim Beam as a sponsor. So we're going to have an open bar. We'll have cigars supplied by Cigars 210. So PG County residents, anybody who wants to support Malik, please come out. You would have to just go ahead and register and RSVP via the link on my Facebook page. Chris is also going to post it as a follow-up to the show. So we'll make sure everybody understands where to go RSVP on the campaign website. So please like and share the podcast as well. A lot of you have said this was informative. Please share it with your friends and your family, because again, it's important to get out to vote. Yeah, and if
you guys are parents, you have teens in your household or young men, young women too. I think it's very important for them to hear this, because what they perceive as reality in America and the criminal justice system is real, right? And I can attest to that. I think it's important to share this. And I know that, a lot of the folks, watching Lenessa's Facebook Live and watching this broadcast may or may not live in Prince George's County. And not everybody has, money to donate. Money is great. I would love, to have $100,000 in my campaign account, but, that's not the reality, right? A lot of people are moved and supportive of my message and my goal, but just don't have the wherewithal to be able to donate. But if you could also go to my website and, sign up to volunteer. Lenessa has come out to a couple of events with us, and, it's important to get that visibility.
And I brought my son out so
right.
He can see what's happening.
It's important to have that visibility, not only to just the voters, but to other campaigns, so they could take a look and say, wow, man, look how much support this guy has. This guy's doing things, and then they in turn want to help and support my campaign. If you can't donate and you can't volunteer, or if you can't donate and volunteer, please tell 5 friends about my campaign. Tell 10 friends and ask them to tell 5 friends and tell 10 friends. I'm not a part of the establishment. The woman who put her thumb on the scale in the Jakai Colson grand jury, she's part of the system. So all of the sitting politicians in Prince George's County are supporting her because she was the governor's selection, not because they think that she's a great person or they think that she's going to be a good judge, but just simply for the fact that this governor, who in the past 8 years has only appointed 2 African-American men, appointed this woman, they're supporting her. So that's what I'm up against. So, if you can support my campaign in any way, monetarily, volunteering, or telling friends, your support would be greatly appreciated.
And we also Juneteenth today. This is actually a federal holiday. Some of us still had to work, but it's a federal holiday, and we're celebrating freedom, right? But we know we're not free,
right?
So we know make sure our voices are heard. That's one way you can actually help the cause, is to make your voice heard by voting. Talk about just being off today, but it's not just being off. What are you doing today to support? So this is one of the ways that the Smoking Jacket broadcast wanted to support Juneteenth, is by talking politics and having Malik on today.
Right.
That is great. That's great.
You said it best, Lenessa. The irony and the tragedy. People want change, but they don't get out and vote for change.
Exactly.
And so if there's any worth in this broadcast and the information that is passed, don't just people can donate all day long, like Malik said. But the best way you can donate to anything is to, one, register to vote, get out and vote, get your children of age that are able to vote to take the time to vote, because that is how change starts to take place. We can put information out there all day long. You can put the campaign message out there all day long, but nothing matters until you actually vote for the change that you want. Get people out there. We don't take that seriously. We always be in the scene, but then when it comes time to vote, we're behind the scenes because we don't get out and do nothing to make our change. But I always said this, and I always had this particular message in leadership that I would always say: let your complaint level equal your participation level. Right. And if you got a complaint, then participate to make the change of your complaint be known. And the way you do that is you have to go out and vote.
That's right.
I mean, enough said on that. There's nothing else you could say on that. You got to get out and vote for the change that you want. And that's just the bottom line. It's how Trump got into office, because people did not take that seriously. They did not take the fact that, if Rob was on a broadcast, bless his heart, we'd be going at it right now. That's my brother, love him to death. And so you got to get out and vote for the change you want. If you got a complaint, then you got to participate. And if your complaint level don't equal your participation level, then you know what? The part of the problem is you. Right. So get out and do what's right, and get out.
Well said, brother. Well said.
So do you have any final words about your campaign? Like, what is your campaign? I know you have like 3 pillars for your campaign.
Yeah. Man, look here. You can take all the time you need.
Okay. Can I answer Lenessa's question, then jump back to Juneteenth? My 3 pillars: honesty, integrity, and equality.
Mm-hmm.
I intend to be honest, right? I've always been a man of integrity. Even when I was running the street doing my dirt, I always had integrity. And also, I intend to bring equality to the bench. I'm not putting my finger on the scale for one side or the other. I'm going to judge each case based on the evidence that's put forward at trial. I'm going to listen to every participant, whether it be someone who's been punched in the face or had their car stolen, or whether you're someone who punched somebody in the face and stole somebody's car. I'm going to listen to what you have to say, what your attorney has to say, what the prosecutor has to say. And I'm going to use that to fashion an appropriate sentence. And I intend to end the school to prison pipeline. Everybody doesn't deserve to be in jail. I think
That's
that
right.
if you're convicted of a nonviolent offense, that you can your needs can best be served on the streets. We don't necessarily have to lock you away and take you away from your kids, take you away from your family. You know what I'm saying? So you know, those are the three pillars that I stand on. But if I may say, when I was a kid in school, and you know, we would talk about slavery, I felt an immense amount of shame behind that, being African American, and knowing that my people were in bondage and servitude to white people, right? But as I became older and I began to read and learn more about our history, I gained a sense of pride in being descendants of people who were enslaved. Number one, right? Because if you think about it, when they went to Africa to kidnap our ancestors weren't laying on the beach sunning themselves and they was picking them off like, you know, fish in a barrel, right? They were in the interior of the continent, and they had to go into the interior and get these. And they didn't get the elderly, they didn't get the infirm, they didn't get the disabled. They got the strongest, right? The young people, the people who are most physically capable. And
they wanted to return on their work,
right? And so, you know, oftentimes it would take 2 or 3 weeks for them to march you from the interior to the coast, right, where you know the boat is waiting for you. So a lot of us didn't make that march from the interior to the coast, right? And more times than not, when you got to the coast, they put you in one of those slave castles, right, where you didn't even have a toilet. You had to do your business right where you were standing, with everybody else who was packed into that room, right? Hot, steaming, humid, stinking of all kind of body, body extra, and so forth and so on. And a lot of our people didn't survive the slave castles, right? So when they put you on the ship, you were even in more dire situation, right? Because now you're laying flat on a bunk, right, with somebody above you, maybe 2 or 3 people above you, and maybe another row or 2 of people underneath you. And you know that there are a lot of our people that didn't survive the Middle Passage, right? So the way I look at it, those of us, those of our ancestors who made it through the Middle Passage, made it from the coast of Africa to the Americas, or to the West, let's say, those were the strongest of the strong, right? So it's kind of, I look at it, you know, for lack of a better term, it was kind of like a distillation process. And not to say that the people that didn't survive were weak, but the people that did survive were exceptionally strong. Right? And that's who we come from. That strength is innate in us. That is who we are. So as Black people in the Americas, we can do anything. Trust and believe that, because we stand on the backs of literal giants. So, you know, when I think about slavery, you know, I think about it, you know, not so much with pride, but, you know, it doesn't, you know, it's not something that I'm ashamed of, because there are a whole lot of people, you know, who wouldn't have been able to survive what we've survived, you know?
Exactly.
So, but,
and I might add those castles are ran by the Portuguese. You think that the English, it was the Portuguese that started the slave trade. The Portuguese, then the Spanish, then the English. You know,
right. So. And the Dutch, the Belgians, all of them are complicit.
Right.
You know, we got a little bit of everything out of this broadcast. Some Juneteenth history, great, outstanding. You know, I'm gonna speak to one thing, and it's something you said, and is very relevant. You know, and you know, because you're being real, and I like that, and I appreciate that about you. First of all, I think it was somebody that said it. Hold on 1 second. I got to go back to it. Give me a
Was it Martin?
second. No. Hold on. I believe it was Kenyatta. Right. Hold on. Give me a second. Right here. Amazing testimony. First of all, the background from where you came from, and the change that you made in life to elevate yourself to this particular junction where you are now. That took work. That took the willingness to want to change not only who you were and who you are, but to change the environment around you. But as I listened to you and you talked about honesty, integrity, and what was the other one?
Equality.
Equality. Some people will say, "Oh, that sounds like a politician," but you added to that. And when you added to that, oh yeah, I get deep with this thing, yeah. When you added to that, you said that you had integrity even in the street. See, because when I was in the street, I did not deal with foolishness that did not bring the integrity. Even in the street, there's a code.
Mm-hmm.
And integrity is everything. Loyalty is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Once that loyalty and that integrity line is crossed, because see, loyalty and integrity are cousins. They not distant cousins. They are first cousins.
They're kissing
And they go
cousins.
together. I said in a sermonic sermon last week, integrity and dishonesty cannot be roommates.
Right.
You're either gonna have one or you're gonna have the other, because they can't coexist together.
They cancel.
And so I appreciate the candidacy in saying, because you coming from where it is, the street. And if you can bring that kind of integrity of what you know and how you can pass judgment properly on people, but not only that, but to further help people, because everybody that is either incarcerated, first of all, may not even be guilty. Secondly, everybody that is incarcerated, may need a certain particular life-changing experience, and you have, and now will have the power to help with that process and say, well, you know what, I know what this person need more than jail. Send them here, do this or do that. So I appreciate that, and I think really people need to hear this. Once again, share it,
please,
repost it, get it out, get the word out. But most importantly, you got to vote. You got to vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know you say I talk too much, Lenessa.
That was a well said point there, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just want to make sure that we don't spend too much time. Do you have any final words before we thank our other guests and hosts?
Well,
excuse me, Mr. Shakur. I just can't. You got somewhere to be?
Go ahead. Huh?
No, I'm asking,
brother.
I'm the biggest jokester of all jokes. I asked you got somewhere to be. Don't be rushing us.
Look,
but hey,
I'm at home. I don't have anywhere else to be. So.
Does anybody have questions? Anybody that's been listening on my Instagram, Facebook? Anybody have questions for Mr. Shakur?
And this hour went by so fast. I'm ready to do another. Fast. And you guys made me feel so comfortable. I was nervous at first because I'm one of those people that they call ambivert, right? Which means that you're introverted and extroverted. I feel more comfortable being introverted, right? Being by myself, not being in crowds, definitely not being the center of attention. But this campaign has challenged me and taught me things about myself in ways that I never could have imagined, because I've got to force myself to go out to events and, put myself out there with strangers. And, I'm going to stick to the point because I can get off on
all right, man.
In a second. But in any event, it's put me in uncomfortable situations, and I forced myself to fight through that. When I went to Howard, Again, I was, very introverted despite the time that I spent on the streets or whatever. And one thing that I used to do to break out of that is that I used to hand out flyers for the party promoters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would go up to people and talk to them.
Mark Barnes, back in the Mark Barnes day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the power move and all of them.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. So in any event, it's a very uncomfortable position, but I'm willing to do what I have to do to take myself outside of my comfort zone. But because it's important. It's important for you all who are listening. It's probably more so important for our kids, right? I started to say I'm willing to take that sacrifice. I'm not like Antoine out there, on the streets, as a Baltimore City police officer putting my life on the line. But I'm just challenging, emotionally, mentally, and emotionally, which is something completely different. But I'm willing to sacrifice this for our people, for our community. So
we all should be.
Yeah. And definitely that's the thing. We all should be. And you don't have to be running for office or doing this, but you certainly have to get out and vote to put the people in office that need to be in office and do what's right by us and for us, and not just by us and for us, because it's not always about us and but for the people. And I believe that this candidate right here is a man for the people. He'll pass judgment properly, righteously on white, black, Hispanic. It don't make a difference because I've listened to him. That's what I do. I listen. Okay. And, hey man, look, I ain't as crazy as they say I am. All right.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. But man, look, you talked about being nervous, man. I always do my due diligence. One of our other co-hosts, Rob, who is very spectacular on our show, man, he does his homework and everything he does. But I've looked at some podcasts that you've been on, and they're a lot more professional than this, professionally ran. And you got the whole studio room and all that. We ain't got none of that. We just low budget, man. But we try to get and add relevancy to what we do. And this is relevant to us. So I was more nervous than you think you are being nervous on this show. I don't know what you expected, but man, look, we just try to we just like to keep it real, be real. And look, I'm going to tell you like this, and this is the honest, I'm going to see right through the bull. And I will address the bull. I will bring the elephant out the room. If it's a narrow door, I'm going to squeeze that butt through it some kind of way, because somebody going to answer, if I don't like what I hear, I'm going to speak to it. So, hey, kudos to you, man.
He's been very calm and listening a lot tonight. So, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and for some reason, when you were speaking, it made me think about times when I was a kid and still living in the Bronx, and my mother would take
183rd and Webster.
Man.
Wait, say that again.
183rd and Webster.
I used to live 169th Street and Boston Road, so by Crotona Park.
Okay.
in any event, my grandmother used to live in the 3rd Avenue projects back when they had the 3rd Avenue L. So I would walk down 169th Street and go up the stairwell for the L and cross over to be across the street.
Man, don't nobody call no subway system an L, but in Philly, man. What you know about the
L?
No,
they got an L in Chicago too. I was actually in boot camp in Chicago, and the main train is the L. So
is that right?
Yeah. But the reason I bring that up is that when I was a kid, my mother would take us to people's house, right, and they would fix a plate of food, and you would be eating the rice, for instance, right. And you may find a roach leg, right? And you just
not a roach leg.
Look, yeah, the roach leg.
The
roach leg with the hooks on the back.
Right.
You find the roach leg, right? And you flick that joint off to the side, and then you flick through the rice looking for the rest of the roach or any other random pieces, right? But one thing your ass didn't do is tell nobody that there was roaches in the rice. You
exactly.
ate that rice. So
it's just like rappers in life. Brother, it's just like rappers in life.
I don't have very high expectations. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. You know what I'm saying? So I don't judge. I'm appreciative. Y'all support me, and that's all I care.
That's
all I care about.
Hey, look here, Malik. One of these days, our co-hosts, we're gonna just have a transparent show about each other, because and I love the story, and I love what you said. I love even the part where hey, I going through the system, went to the system, sitting in the courtroom, brother. I done sat in many courtrooms. A lot of people don't know, the troubles I've had in life. 2 years in Petersburg Federal Penitentiary. When you come out, you have to have a desire to make change. When I got out, man, I used every bit of that federal money that I had available to me as a convicted felon, this, that, and the other. Use the grant money, let them spend their money on me. I wanted to, and decided I wanted to get myself together, and then go on to get 1 bachelor's in mathematics, 3 master's degree, and three doctorate degrees. And so, it's how you want to elevate yourself in this life to do great things and make change and be about change. So, brother, look, I'm right there with you, man. The positivity of, what you put back in the community and how you, want to make change in the community. Basically, it really starts from the troubles that you've had and the things that you didn't get to want to make change in the environment that we currently live in.
It's the struggle, brother.
Because I can go old school gangster on you in a minute.
I know that's right. Hey, Mr. Petworth,
yes,
have you seen the new Fresh Prince, Bel Air?
Man, I have, and my brother is. Well, you know what? The first of all, from the original show, and that whole thing right there, and the spin that was put on it this time around, it speaks volumes. Life ain't a bed of roses, no matter where you are, because everybody can encounter the same problem. Based and first of all, a lot of problems start with one, neglect. And when you think about how much money folks have, you look at Prince, you look at life ain't no bed of roses, man.
Right.
And people find their way of escape by any means necessary, through drugs, through barbiturates, through whatever, through the white man drug, which is cocaine, that we really can't afford, but sometimes we spend our whole rent check on it, or this, that, and the other. Oh man, anybody.
But sometimes the best way to deal with it is to share your story. Yeah. Because other people don't understand the struggle unless they hear the struggle from somebody else and say, "Oh, they came from the side."
Well, that's the whole thing about it. They got to hear the struggle from somebody else, because first of all, people think they in it all by themselves, and until you really can find somebody that can relate with you, to you, for you, to help you, you're gonna be dependent on certain things that ain't always good,
right?
Because you're shutting people out. And it's like, I mean, I know a lot of functional alcoholics and functional drug users,
right?
And you would never know,
right,
that they're on this, that, or the other.
Right? You provide counseling to some folks as well, right?
I do work. My PhD is in psychology.
Yes, right. He didn't mention that.
So you a doctor?
Yes, sir. Well, I have 3 doctors: a doctorate in psychology.
You had me at BA in mathematics, right? As smart as I like to think
it's a BS in mathematics, Bachelor of Science.
Okay, I'm sorry, but in any event, I bow down to people who are gifted in STEM fields. You know what I'm saying? Because I may have been a doctor, a lawyer.
And I'm gonna tell you something real funny. I was afraid to fail at anything. I flunked math in high school. Okay. And the only reason I went into that field is because I knew if I went into that particular field, I had no time to play. Right. And so I had to hit the books. I had to do what I had to do to get what I needed to get out of school and graduate, because I didn't want to be there longer than necessary. I wasn't going to change my field. And so the only way to get out was to hit the books, graduate, study the theorems and the algorithms of mathematics, period. And so I'm not going to say I graduated with the highest. Well, actually, I had a 3.8. Well, I mean, not bragging now, but I had to buckle down because I had the one, and I was a substitute teacher at T.C. Williams High School. During my time in the Marine Corps, I was a substitute teacher. And what was funny was that they didn't like my style of substitute teaching because as a Marine, T.C. Williams was out the hook back then, and my level of discipline was,
I can relate.
Back in the day, graduating, when I graduate, if you acted up, the teachers would send you to the wood shop with a note, and the wood shop a teacher had a paddle, and he knew what that note meant. Bend over. And they would give you the paddle. And you think you can go home and tell your mama if you want? No, but that's the way it was back then. It's not that way now, but it is what it is.
Well, this has been a very informative broadcast. We had a special guest come on. We had Antoine Chambers just popped in out of nowhere. Chris was like, bring him on.
I just had to come in because I was inclined. This brother was speaking some good words, and I think he's going to be a great judge. And I just had to come in and share my little story, and I'm behind you, brother. And I'm gonna have to get out of here because Juju has to close shop here in Eldersburg. So thank you for having me. And again, I'm right behind you, Mr. Shakur.
All right.
Thank you so much, Antoine.
Listen, Antoine. I was very moved and appreciative of your comment, and if you could come to the fundraiser on Saturday, I would definitely appreciate an opportunity to meet you in person and chop it up with you in person. But
so we're starting at 6:00. It's from 6 to 11 right here in Fort Washington, Maryland, at the private residence of Malik Shakur. So if you want to hear his story and talk more, definitely come on out.
And sample different bourbons from around the country.
Yeah, bourbon, cigars,
Jim
Beam sponsoring.
We're going to have giveaways.
Okay, that's great.
You guys are registered. Thank you, Antoine. I know you got to go.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate you.
All right, thank you all.
All right, man. Hey, look, definitely appreciate. Definitely appreciate this time, this opportunity. Lenessa, I'm going to give it to you to close out. But before I do that, I got to give a shout out to all of the individuals that stuck with us and hung in there with us during the broadcast. My man, Marcus James, quoted I did my dissertation on Dr. Martin Luther King. The ultimate measure of man is not where he stands in a moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Martin Luther King wrote that. It was in one of his books, one of his speeches. And so to speak to that, these are challenging times. And so don't get comfortable and don't be in the convenience of the situation that you are in, because at any time, challenges can come about. It's like he spoke to the show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or Bel-Air as it's called now, not The Fresh Prince. But we looked at the Carlton situation and how that came about. We looked at Will's life and etc. All that's real stuff. I like the spin they put on it. And there are some things that, when the time of challenge and controversy comes, you need a man that is in office that's able to stand in the gap of the separation of where you are and be that bridge that he's able to cross you over to the other side legitimately, legally, through the integrity, the honesty, and the equality of what he just spoke to. Lenessa.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for summing that up for us. So thank you again for everybody coming to listen to Mr. Malik Shakur's story and hearing about his candidacy. Thank you for watching. Please like and share. This has been the Smoking Jacket broadcast. I'm Lenessa Terry, aka Puffin Pretty. Malik Shakur, please RSVP for the fundraiser for this Saturday from 6 to 11, powered by Lit Torch app. Jim Beam is our sponsor. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Mr. Chris Petworth Riley. Thank you for having this show and this platform for everybody to learn and be educated. And everybody have a good
Gotta
Thank
give
you
a
so
shout
much
out
for
to our co-hosts, our other co-hosts, Jay Ferg. Man, miss you, my brother.
Absolutely.
See you next Monday. Rob, Big Rob,
Rob.
in their absence, definitely. We giving a shout out to them. We'll see them next week on our regular broadcast show every second Monday and fourth Monday of the month is our normal times and normal second and fourth Mondays.
Who's coming up next? What do we have next? Who's coming up next?
We got Select Draw. The gentleman, the guy that made the Select Draw cutter, who I've been using the wrong way. I've been using it as a poker, but I'm glad he's coming over because that's what I thought.
It's multi-purpose.
It's multi-purpose, yeah, it is. And
yeah.
so we got him on to explain the use, the idea, the functionality of it, how it came about, his dream. In that, another black man doing black business. We want to support that. We thank him for the efforts he's put into the cigar community. So we look forward to that. And definitely, like I said, we're just the broadcast trying to make change and impact, not just about cigars, but everyday life.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you guys again for joining us. Please like and share again. And thank you for listening in on the Smoking Jacket broadcast. Have a wonderful holiday night.
And thank you all so much for having me. Please like and share the video. I think we had a very important conversation here that people need to hear. So thank you all so much for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm truly humbled by the support that I've been receiving from our community. So thank you again for having me.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you, man.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.